Good. So let's take a look at A Journey to the West. As I said the other day, this year marks the 20th Parinirvana anniversary of Phuntsok Rinpoche, and we should remember him in a different way. A way by reading his teachings to remember him. Lots of the teachings contained in this book, in fact, are not even taught in Laronggar. So this book is indeed a treasure trove. So we can use this way to remember our Lama. This is quite important. Some of our fellow Sangha members had already watched the short clip, video clip, we can call it a short documentary of Phuntsok Rinpoche's Journey to the West. Many people told me that they teared up and even cried while watching it. I think this way, through videos and footages, you can make a closer connection, or you can generate a more direct feeling of that journey. You should consider yourselves being quite fortunate and have already made close connections to Phuntsok Rinpoche, because now it is only 20 years since his passing. Wait till the 30 and 40 years, then our generation, the older generation, would part one by one. And then maybe people would cherish those kinds of people who can still share the experiences of encountering Rinpoche in person. But maybe by then, not many people would still be alive. That is why I think nowadays it is still important to share these kinds of footages and experiences of Phuntsok Rinpoche. During the time where all of us are studying the Vajrayana teachings, it is really crucial for us to generate a genuine faith and devotion towards our lineage teacher. For people who are wise, I'm sure you would generate lots of feelings towards the lineage, towards our institute. If you were to have that feeling of being touched, of being generated heartfelt devotion and even teared up during that time, I think that is a sign that you are a good practitioner. And if not, if you were to cry over the secular things or worldly affairs, then it really doesn't mark you as a good practitioner. Those kinds of signs, those kinds of footage of Phuntsok Rinpoche, maybe after a few years would be difficult to be obtained. Lots of the footages are indeed very precious, and it is very difficult to keep those footages from 50s, 60s, and 80s and 90s. It's difficult to keep it till now, and they're definitely not. It's definitely not footages that's manufactured afterwards. Well, today is the 15th of September. Maybe by that time, 30 years ago, we already returned. Now we're going to continue to talk about Hawaii. The first morning after Phuntsok Rinpoche arrived in Hawaii, he bestowed the Bodhisattva vow, and then in the evening he taught on the history of Maha'ati without bestowing empowerment first. Well, on page 48, there's a picture of many people standing there. Miguel is the one in pleated shirt.
好像网络有点。
Where is the internet? Okay, internet is here. See, it comes when I call for you. So that's very good of you. That's very kind of you. Now, today we'll continue with the prophecies of the Buddha. Yesterday we had already talked on the history of Shakyamuni Buddha from the Vajrayana's point of view. Those kinds of titles were added afterwards. However, when Phuntsok Rinpoche gave the teachings, he in fact gave the entire teaching altogether at once. How did the Vajrayana teaching, the secret Mantrayana, thrive in the world? When the Buddha was alive in this world, he taught the glorious Gyuhyar Samaja Tantra to King Indrabudi in Udayana. The Gyuhyar Samaja Tantra was taught directly from the Buddha. And then in front of the meritorious Danyakataka stupa in southern India, he taught chanting the names of Manjushri and Kalachakra Tantra to an incredible gathering of beings, including the Shambhala king Suchandra. In addition, he gave various Vajrayana teachings of sacred mantra to a few fortunate disciples in the realms of gods, Nagas, Yakshas, Gandharvas, and so forth. As he was passing into Parinirvana, the Buddha prophesied that now I have extensively expounded the Dharma of Vajrayana, the causal vehicle, to many karmically fortunate beings. But I have rarely taught Vajrayana, the resultant vehicle. In the future, the teachings of sacred mantra will be widely spread. This is the prophecy of the Buddha. In terms of who will turn the Dharma wheel of sacred Mantrayana, the Bhagavan also foretold 28 years after my passing. At the request of 5 excellent ones of sublime nobility, the teachings of sacred mantra will be widely taught. This is also taught in the history of Tibetan Buddhism, where it also talked about who is going to give the teachings and how the Dharma teachings will be propagated and how Garab Dorje would propagate the Dharma and so on. Lots of the prophecies about Garab Dorje as well as other great masters would be talked about more in the Vajrayana prophecies later. We will look at it later. And then over here, the 5 noble ones or 5 excellent ones is included in the history of Tibetan Buddhism as well. Now, there is then the prophecy of the Origin Rinpoche, lake-born Vajra, will be born into the world and propagate Vajrayana even more extensively than myself. As predicted, Origin Padmasambhava was born into our world in the Milky Lake of Udayana, which is identified by many scholars today to be in present-day Pakistan. In addition, Origin Padmasambhava, lotus-born Vajra, his teachings would be more extensive than that of the Buddhas. The other day when we studied the mantra of Padmasambhava, we talked about the time when he arrived in Tibet. According to various kinds of historical record, it should be 770 CE. Initially, this prophecy, according to this prophecy that after 8 years of his passing, of the Buddha's passing, Padmasambhava should already have been born. But because he is the indestructible Vajra, indestructible Vajra body, therefore he would abide in this world for a very long period of time. There are people who would say that Padmasambhava is just a folklore person and not a real person and so on. However, according to the true history of the real historical record, in the year 771 CE, that is the conflict between Buddhism and Buddhism. And Bon tradition, before that, that was 7 years before that, that was the Bodhisattva when he enters into Tibet and propagate the Dharma. I think you should remember those kinds of time. In terms of the Milk Sea of Pakistan, since the country Pakistan was established in 1947, I don't think he... Well, I believe according to a different historical record, it states that he was born at a different place. So that was the prophecy. In addition, the sutra requested by the Immaculate Goddess also clearly prophesies the Dharma will spread to the north and flourish in the northern territory of the land of snows. Some prophecy also says that the Dharma will flourish to the south in the southern territory. Today, it is true that the Buddha Dharma is essentially flourishing in Sri Lanka and the land of Tibet. In Sri Lanka, the doctrines of common vehicle flourish as well the land of Tibet. The land of Tibet, the Mahayana teachings of sacred mantra are widely spread. So from south to the southern territory refers to Sri Lanka, and the north of northern territory refers to the land of Tibet. These are the two aspects in terms of the prophecies given by the Buddha. Moreover, the Buddha also prophesied in sutras the appearances of many learned and accomplished masters. For example, he had predicted that many great masters such as Nagarjuna, Saraha, and others. Well, I couldn't find the prediction of Saraha, but for Nagarjuna, I have already found it. These kinds of learned great masters would appear in India. There are also prophesied that several Dharma kings, such as Sun Sun Khenpo and so on, would also successively appear in the snowy land of Tibet. Not only that, Padmasambhava of the old school named Mapa, Lama Tsongkhapa of the new school of Gelugpa, Jetsun Milarepa of the Kagyu and Lineage master of Sakya school were also prophesied in the Buddhist scriptures. So, reflecting on all of these prophecies, we should realize that our root teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, is truly extraordinary. Nowadays, in this world, there are many scientists who tirelessly engage in scientific research. They have conducted extensive research, are currently engaging in research as well, and will continue to carry out more in the future. However, how many of them would be able to omnisciently understand all truth of the world and teach the essential points of reality like our root teacher Shakyamuni Buddha? Especially when it comes to the Buddha's teachings in the sutras, which covers in great detail and extensiveness of both the macro and micro world. He taught on the truth in both of the perspectives. How many researchers and scientists would be able to do that? Well, if only the Buddhists were to praise the Buddha in such a way that is not trustworthy. However, when you look into the treasures left by the Buddha, then you could easily see it. Lots of the scholars and the scientists, when it comes to comparisons of wisdom, if you were to compare their wisdom to that of the Buddha's, you would definitely be able to realize that the Buddha's wisdom is far surpassing that of the others. Let it be from the conventional truth or the ultimate truth, or when it comes to the teachings on karma of the sentient beings, whenever we compare to all different perspectives and aspects, we can see that the Buddha is indeed magnificent. In a word, according to the prophecy of the omniscient Buddha who possessed miraculous power and a great compassion, the sacred Vajrayana teachings will gradually become prevalent in many regions. Now the next, the flourishing of the great perfection. When Phuntsok Rinpoche was giving the Dharma teaching in such a way, when I was listening to it, I didn't realize it, but when I was actually working on transcribing and writing on it, I realized how much wisdom and how great this talk is, how much wisdom it contains, and how great this speech is. Within the teaching of sacred mantra, there are 3 outer classes of Tantra and 3 inner classes of Tantra, each of which has a rich history and how it has been disseminated. However, since the others are not the subject you have requested this time, I will not elaborate on their history. Here, I will focus on how the great perfection, or Dzogchen, has been brought into this world and flourished. Over there in Hawaii, because the majority of people really long to hear the Dharma teaching on the Dzogchen, therefore Phuntsok Rinpoche give the teachings over here on Dzogchen only. Initially, this part is not translated into Chinese language, especially since you have already received the Ninti Gyapshi last year. I think it is quite crucial to translate this part from Tibetan language into Chinese. Anyhow, after finish translating it, I think it must be very beneficial to those of you who want to learn about it. So how have the Great Perfection Doctrine been spread? Initially, the source of all Buddhists, the primordial Buddha, Dharmakaya Sammadabhadra, demonstrated perfect, complete, and surpassable enlightenment. Then, by the unobstructed power of his blessing, the 3 supremes of the 3 regions naturally emerged. The representative of the enlightened body, the Vajrasattva statue that is made of 101 kinds of precious jewels in the size of a human at the time when human lifespan is 100 years. In fact, we also have a crystal-made Vajrasattva statue. It simply, that statue is made of the materials. Also, the causes and conditions of that statue is very special. It's not much of a difference than a human size, maybe a little bit smaller. And at the time when we had that Vajrasattva statue, Phuntsok Rinpoche also used this particular teaching. And Vajrasattva is the main deity of 100 categories of deities. It is not that we only chant the mantra and then believe that he has only a little bit of ability as such. It's not like that at all. And then in terms of the speech, the representation is the sole air of the Doctrine Tantra, the forefinger with white written with gold on aquamarine paper. The representative of the enlightened mind, a crystal Vajra with the length of a forearm of a human being at the time when human lifespan is 100 years. These 3 are called the 3 supremes or 3 regions of Buddhism. In whichever realm these 3 appears, the sentient beings will enjoy peace and happiness free from suffering. Also, in that realm, the Vajrayana doctrine of sacred mantra will naturally flourish, and many sentient beings will naturally accomplish spiritual attainment with no great effort required. So we can see that Vajrasattva statue, and then the Sanji Sanchik and the Vajra. The Vajra made of crystal is really important. With the blessings of the 3 supremes, the 12 great teachers of Dzogchen had already appeared in different places in realms in succession. The 12 great teachers of Dzogchen is included in the Shastri of Garland that is now included at the beginning of the book that is called Lamayantik. And then when the three supreme naturally emerged in the realm of Akanishta by the unobstructed power of his mind, Buddha Samadabhadra transmitted the teachings to the great perfection to the 5 Buddhas of the 5 families. So this is the Dharmakaya realm, who are actually his own self-reflection in the way of direct mind transmission of the Buddha. In the pure Sambhogakaya field of Akanishta, the self-existing Tantra, so heir of the doctrine Tantra, descended into the palm of Vajrasattva. Thereby, the doctrine of great perfection became prevalent in the realm of gods, humans, nagas, and so forth. In the Nirmanakaya realm, this self-existing Tantra has been existing in the space above Bodhagaya, always proclaiming itself, and will remain in space there for many years to come. It is self-born, naturally born. It is not made by anyone. This sole heir of doctrine Tantra. Last year, you have already received the oral transmission and empowerment of it. For those of you who have received the oral transmission and empowerment, it would be the best for you to chant it once every day. If you really couldn't do that every day, at least you can wear it, since it is liberation upon touching. When Khenpo Jigme went to United States, in fact, at that time he had not given this teaching to the Sangha in Larongar yet. He only gave the teachings in 1995, and I made the aspiration to chant it every single day. I made that aspiration on the 25th of July in 1995. So I think each of us should try our best to practice upon it, or at least carry it. Many people does not even have the courage to even say the names. This is such a profound teaching, the sole heir of the doctrine Tantra. I myself am currently translating it. I think to myself that even if it means that I will go to hell realm, but as long as it will be beneficial to all of you, I am still translating it. I'm currently on the 5th chapter out of 7th chapter. Without any accidents, hopefully I will be able to finish translating it. Now it is said that as long as the sole heir of the doctrine Tantra remains there, the great perfection doctrine will not vanish, and it will continue to flourish evermore. Anyone who practices it will achieve accomplishment and attain extraordinary states of enlightenment. Other than this text, the representatives of the enlightened body and mind are present in different worlds as well for the benefit of sentient beings there. Maybe a little more. Well, sleeping for 10 more minutes doesn't really matter. So let us maybe continue a little more with the Dharma teachings instead. Now, with the blessings of the sole heir of the doctrine Tantra, the first human Dzogchen master, Garab Dorje, was conceived without a father and was born in Vajrayana, west of India. Garab Dorje relied on the blessings of sole heir of the doctrine Tantra, because he was the first who propagated the Dharma teachings in the human realm. Now, he was born in Vajrayana, west of India. He arrived instantly in Akanishta in the presence of Vajrasattva. From Vajrasattva, he received the entire 6.4 million tantras, stanzas of the great perfection, and all the Dzogchen endowments, such as the entire anointment of omnipresent transmissions, as well as all the practice, guidance, and path instructions. Garab Dorje had memorized all the 6.4 million stanzas by heart and compiled them into the doctrine of great perfection. These are included in another text called The Wish Fulfilling Jewel of the lineage. I hope that you can read into it. And when Garab Dorje turned the wheel of Dharma, there was a learned Buddhist scholar in India called Manjushrimitra or Khenpo Jigme in Tibet, who was perfectly versed in the 10 sciences. He heard that Garab Dorje had proclaimed that the karmic law of cause and effect did not exist, so he decided to debate with him, and he found Garab Dorje. But even when he had exhausted his storehouse of knowledge, either that of the basic or advanced vehicle, he still could not defeat Garab Dorje. Having lost the debate, he employed his miraculous power in the wish to overcome the master, but failed again. Realizing that he was wrong and feeling ashamed, he begged Garab Dorje for forgiveness and followed him as a disciple. This is a brief history and a story about Garab Dorje and Manjushrimitra. From Master Garab Dorje, he received the great perfection doctrine in its entirety. When Garab Dorje's enlightened activities in this world were completed, he entered Parinirvana at Danatika River. Jampa Sining cried out in despair and expressing deep grief, lamented, "If you enter Parinirvana, the lamplight of Buddha Dharma will dwindle and die out, and all sentient beings will be trapped in unbearable suffering." At that time, Garab Dorje's body had already dissolved into rainbow light. However, being moved by his disciples' cry in clear light in the midst of rainbow light, Garab Dorje's right hand and forearm appeared, in which was a small golden casket containing the teachings of the 3 vital statements that strike the crucial point. Garab Dorje handed his last teachings to Khenpo Jigme. Later, Khenpo Jigme compiled 6.4 million stanzas and he received from Garab Dorje into 3 categories: the outer category of mind, the inner category of space, and the secret category of peace instructions. This is the story between Garab Dorje and his disciple Khenpo Jigme. Afterward, Khenpo Jigme turned the wheel of Dharma for humans and non-human spirits in the great Sosaling charnel ground. At that time, there was a master named Shri Singha in a place called Auspicious Gate in today's Xi'an city. I think it is probably similar to then China is probably similar to the now Tibet and have had many different kinds of knowledge. So he said that he had attained all 8 common spiritual accomplishments and was a great erudite who was well versed in the 18 sciences. Once Avalokiteshvara appeared and prophesied to him, "Noble son, your root guru in many lifetimes now lives in Sosaling charnel ground in India. Go and find him." Then through his miraculous power, Shri Singha flew in space about 1 foot in height above the ground and reached Sosaling, India in only 7 days. He met Khenpo Jigme, followed him, and received all his teachings without exception. Maybe he's traveling, since he traveled for 7 days, he's faster than normal beings on foot to travel there on foot, but still slower than maybe trains or cars. Anyhow, he used the 7 days to travel to Khenpo Jigme. Finally, Khenpo Jigme passed into Parinirvana by transforming his body into a beam of rainbow light and disappeared. Seeing this, Shri Singha wept in distress and prayed to his teacher. Then from the sky descended Khenpo Jigme's last instruction, which is the 6 experiences of meditation. In fact, the 4 Vidyadhara's last teachings are still existent in Tibetan language. Sometimes I, in fact, thought to myself whether I should translate that, because there are different commentaries given by great masters as well. Anyhow, over here, he continued to say that by chanting it, Shri Singha's mind became non-dual with the wisdom of his guru. Afterward, Shri Singha returned to his motherland, China, and went to Mount Wutai Buddha to enter into meditative absorption in Sijin or cool grove charnel ground. That is on the Mount Wutai. And at that time in eastern India, there were two great Panditas, Jnana Sutra and Vimalamitra. They are very close Dharma friends. They're kindred spirits, sharing the same ideals and following the same path for 500 lifetimes. One day, when they were entertaining themselves in a garden, Vajrasattva descended from the sky and prophesied to them, "Noble sons, both of you have been Panditas for 500 lifetimes, but still have not yet attained Buddhahood. If you want to reach Buddhahood in this very lifetime, you should go to the Cool Grove charnel ground in China." Impetuous yet courageous, Vimalamitra immediately returned home, put on his Dharma robes, packed his begging bowl, and set out for China. In 9 years, he stayed to receive empowerments, guidance, and peace instructions from Shri Singha. Having followed his teacher for 9 years and received his teaching fully, he went back to India. Only did Jnana Sutra travel to find Shri Singha in China, where he spent 21 years together with the master. Well, there are different ways of describing these two traveling, because it seems that Jnana Sutra only stayed with his teacher Shri Singha for 9 years, and then Vimalamitra then went there for 21 years. When Shri Singha lived in Cool Grove charnel ground in China, Padmasambhava and a great translator, Vajrayana, also came to rely on him and receive the great perfections teachings from him. In fact, this part of the history is also included in the biography of Padmasambhava. Lots of the stories between Padmasambhava and Vajrayana when they were at Mount Wutai were included in his biography. In Mount Wutai, Padmasambhava also had concealed many dharmas. At that time, when Shri Singha passed into Parinirvana, he gave his last instruction, the 7 nails, to Jnana Sutra, through which the wisdom mind of Jnana Sutra and Shri Singha became non-dual. Later, when Jnana Sutra passed into Parinirvana, his body transformed into a mass of light, from which his final teaching, the 4 means of abiding, descended to Vimalamitra. All of the above-mentioned great human masters vanished into light and disappeared at their Parinirvana, except 2 of them. This part of the history is really interesting, quite exciting. So I really hope that you can read more into the biographies and the stories of the great masters. There are lots of stories of such great masters contained in the history of great perfection. These Vidyadharas, the great masters, are the object of supplication that we should practice upon normally. And whenever we have the Vidyadhara Dharma assembly and those Dharma assemblies, and when we chant the prayers of the great masters, we need to seek for the blessings of the lineage masters. We should supplicate wholeheartedly so that we can receive the insights and experience of great perfection.